Hey, what's going on? My name is Sanjay Jenkins. If you've been listening to Design to Convert, you should know me by now. And if this is your very first time, welcome to Design to Convert, Replow's very own podcast where we talk to agency owners, we talk to brands, we talk to SaaS providers, everybody that is working within the e-commerce space to support brands to grow businesses and just do cool stuff on the internet. And that is going to be a big part of today for sure. Growth and doing cool stuff on the internet. I've got Jordan Ross of 8-Figure Agency with me today. And basically what Jordan does is his consultancy, they work with agencies to add millions of dollars in annualized revenue to their business. And I know a big part of our audience is agencies. We probably have like a 60-40 split, I think, between brands and agencies. And supporting agencies is something that we do a lot of at Replow, just from technology enablement. But this is going to be a really fun conversation because Jordan's actually going to open up all the secrets, Pandora's box on how to grow stuff. So Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today, buddy. How are you?
Sanjay, thank you. I'm lit. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to add value to all the listeners. And for those of you that may not be an agency owner, you're going to want to stick around because what I share is applicable. We do have e-com clients. We got holding companies that acquire e-com businesses. We have SaaS clients. Our agency clients refer us to a lot of other clients, and our models and systems work for all of them. So stick around. This is going to be a great chat.
This is fantastic. So let's go straight into this and just give us the 30, 45 second pitch on 8-Figure Agency, what y'all do and how you deliver the value.
Yeah, so at 8F, we're a consultancy that helps primarily agencies scale through systems, operations, processes, and management. My thesis before I had started this business is that the biggest barrier for scale for any business of any size, 6, 7, 8, or 9, is people. It's not assuming, right, that you know how to acquire clients, right? Once you figure that out, it's people, right? Because as a founder, as an executive, you are someone who's really talented, but getting everyone else on board to get your talented employees to come in and to even get your employees to perform, it's a cluster. It's so hard. So my background's with Amazon originally. When I was 24, I was running fulfillment operations for them. I had an org chart of 800 people in an 8-figure business unit beneath me. And I had scaled that so well where I started consulting on the side at my job. And my first client ever was an agency. I went in, this kid was brilliant. He was doing low 6 figures in annual revenue. He was brilliant, doing great stuff with his clients, but he couldn't scale beyond himself, which I'm assuming a lot of you are bottlenecked with your time. We set the right systems, processes, hired, made sure he was managing the right way, made sure there was visibility, scaled to $1 million, sold his business for $1 million exit. Sold his business. He was doing $1 million. I can't say what his exit was, right? And those stories just kept happening and happening where the fit was amazing. Because my belief, especially in the agency space, your issue is not acquisition, your issue is people. So we are a people operations and management consultancy that enables founders to go into the thing that grows their business the most, which is revenue and sales and marketing, and ensure that they have a machine that continues to scale and doesn't break as they grow. And that's why our clients come to us and keep working with us.
I appreciate the context there. One of the things that I will... maybe this is a leading question in a way, but I guess, do you believe that agencies are actually easy to grow once you have the back end? Is that the bottleneck for 90? Easier. Okay.
Easier. And here's why. People, and Sanjay, I don't know if I'm allowed or F-bombs allowed on this podcast.
Yeah.
Hey,
let's fucking go.
Watch out. People are fucking complicated. People are an emotional disaster sometimes. So if you have the right structure and systems, both from a software perspective, our systems primarily focus on the structure and the people management side of things, the people operations side. It's easier, right? Because when you don't have that, people are just freaking hard, right? They're emotional. They have biases. They come in with specific agendas. You might not understand those agendas, right? You need to train them and make sure they retain the knowledge, and then they do the thing, and then they follow the standards, and then there's so much convolution, and there's so many different data points that people need to be tracking and managing. If you have the right systems, it's easier, but things will break at every business. The amount of times I was firefighting at Amazon when shit was hitting the fan was immense. I became a fantastic firefighter. I can't believe LA firefighters haven't reached out to me to help them, right? But it's when shit does break, if you have the right structure and systems and protocol and backup plans, that's when things get easier to get back into standard.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to share a personal story of my own like agency journey, trying to grow an agency. So like I've done, extensive cold emailing in the past. I feel like, gun to head, I could probably go get clients, but every time I've done this, and I've done this about 3 times now, I've been able to get like just enough business to get me up to like, I think max like 32, 33K a month in like month revenue. And it's just me and maybe one other contractor, maybe. And like I run that for like 7 months, and then it all just like, I'm burnt out. Like I'm working crazy days.
Stressed out. I don't have enough time. I don't want to do this. I did this so I could make a lot of money, and now I'm making good money, but I have no life. I'm thinking about my clients all the time. Shit, is that a white hair in my head? Oh no, right? Like, yeah. So keep going, but this is the story. I have heard it thousands of times. Everyone faces this.
And so for me, like the plateau was always like the 30K mark, right? I never got above it, and I never fully figured out like why. I mean, I think now, especially even just like the little bit of amount of time that we've talked about, I think I'm starting to see what the picture is. I'm sure I'm not alone in that experience.
You are with the majority, the overwhelming majority, actually.
So what, like, I'm coming to you, you're the doctor here. Like what medicine do I need to take here? Like what are the hard pills to swallow?
Well, I'm glad you came, because we got that GODD good medicine for you. So I was trying to reference Snoop Dogg. It was a massive failure there. Man. So
we try stuff on this. So sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. We just got to keep trying. So
yeah. So there are several points of plateaus. We got clients that are coming to us that are doing 120 million annually, and they're plateaued at 120 mil. So I think part of the game of business is understanding and framing a plateau as a point of inflection, where if you don't change, you will either start to shrink or you will stagnate and eventually shrink, right? Or you could grow through that. So 30K is usually 20 to 30K is usually the most common area where a solopreneur will hit. And here's why. At 20 to 30K, you might have anywhere between, depending on your price point, 5 to 15 clients. And based on that range, you're doing everything for everyone, including for yourself. You're doing marketing, sales, appointment setting, business development, CRM management, data tracking. You're onboarding, you're project managing, you're account managing, you're leading strategy. If you have 1 or 2 contractors, you're managing your contractors. And the bottleneck is time. That's what it is. The reason you feel overwhelmed, and what you've experienced, Sanjay, at 32,000, 33,000, I got tagged on a LinkedIn post where someone wrote, I'm stuck at $35,000 a month. I'm like, dude, come hang out. I'll get you to $1 million. No problem. The things that, for those of you who are listening that are in this space, and it could be 60, 70, 80, 150, the things I always start with is, where's your time going? Now, for you, Sanjay, I could tell you pretty confidently, you were probably spending too much time in low leverage activities. So those are things we need to get off your plate first. What's a low leverage activities? My definition is an activity that if you were to hire someone for the same activity at the most cost, like at the median of what the market's paying, it's probably less than $10 an hour, right? So to give you some context, the average employee, I saw this yesterday, the average employee in Pakistan, if you're making $4 an hour in a full-time job, you're making more than 75% of the market in Pakistan, right? So there are people who are geniuses there that are willing to take administrative things off your plate, that $4 an hour is actually better than the majority of their peers and what they're making. Onboarding, bookkeeping, emails. Like, there are so many small things that take up 2 to 5 hours of your time a week. And if we get you those 2 to 5 hours back, then you could use that time to start working on the business, to work on the more important stuff. So my first thing is, let's understand where your time is going. Let's get you 2 to 5 hours a week back, because you're not working on the business, you're working in the business. So that's number one. Once you actually start to work on the business, now we could actually start to solve some of these other problems, right? So there it's, okay, let's look at the distribution of your time. Okay, you built a business with the intention to build $1 million, $2 million, $3 million business. But the analogy I always give is if you were to go build a house and you went out into the middle of the desert, I'm in California. So let's just say you go to the Coachella area and you're in the desert and you buy a plot of land. The first thing you do is bring in an architect and you say, I want this home to be worth $3 million. And then you tell them. That's not what we do with our agencies. We just start. And because of that, we get into what I call the agency prison, which is exactly where you were, Sanjay. So from there, we need to start to reverse engineer your process. When you close a deal, what's the first step, second step, all the way to retaining them for 24 months on cold email in your example. Then if we were to scope out and now imagine yourself having a team of 20-ish people, what are all the roles that each function would do? Onboarding specialist, bookkeeper, account manager, project manager, account specialist, account strategist, SDR. And we start to break down from this workflow every single role. We start to delineate what are the most important SOPs, and all actions are not equal. 20% of the things that you do on a week-to-week basis lead to 80% of your activities, right? Or 20% of your activities lead to 80% of your results. Let's identify what do we need to get off your plate that could be either be easier or the most time-consuming that won't be too hard to hire and source someone for. Maybe we'll take a hit temporarily in margin, but when I free up 10 to 15 hours of your time a week and you now go and you have increased capacity and sell 1, 2, or 3 more clients, not only are you going to make that money back, you're actually going to be way more profitable than you were before then. So we go through this journey of restructuring, getting the time back for the founders. And this is usually typically for a founder that's doing less than 1.5 million annually, which includes the guys that are doing, 33,000 a month. We get their time back, and then we actually build the right business with the right structure. So when we bring on more clients, we're not sucked in to a black hole for time. We're not sucked in to work on more accounts. We're not sucked in to manage more people or do more administrative things. We're building the business with the right structure in mind. So as our clients grow, our time in the business does not grow in a direct correlation. And that's the thing that's broken. That's how we fix it, at least for that price point. Because if I meet an agency owner, which I did this week, who's doing $4 million annually, I have a different conversation with him to take him from 4 to 10, right? So each different area and each different plateau has a different time suck or a different bottleneck that all relate to people, every single one.
So what is functionally different from the advice that you give when you're talking to somebody who's doing 360K a year versus they're doing 4 million a year and they're trying to get to 10? Because I would imagine going back to my own example, you'd be like, all right, let's figure out how we get to 30K to 80K a month. That's $1 million a year annualized. 83K, 83.333. Like that's the internet marketer holy grail number.
100%.
So what advice would you be giving to the person who's doing 7 figures already, trying to get to 8 and beyond?
Yeah. So let me just do a recap of who I spoke to this past week. So last week I was talking to a guy he's doubled every year he's been in business. This year he's trying to do 4 million annually. And he's like, I don't know how to get to 10 million. My first thing was, well, there was once upon a time you didn't know how to get to 4 million. So his whole thing was, I need to go hire an executive, I need to go hire a CEO, or I need to go hire a head of whatever, because I don't know how. And for me, I was like, look, you can do that. You're going to end up paying them $200,000, $300,000 annually. I don't think you need to do that. You could hire someone internally, or the thing is you need to really build the right structure. So to go from 4 to 10 million, the frame is building a management and training company, right? To go from 0 to 1 or 33K to 83K, it's really about building a team. You need to build a team that actually support you, because right now you're a solopreneur or you have a few contractors. You need to actually build an actual business, right? 0 to 1 is all about truly building a business. 4 to 10 is about building a machine of a business. And then 10 to 100 is about building the culture in your business. So let's just kind of delineate what those differences are. From 4 to 10, this founder knew and usually at 4 million, you know how to go out and processes to acquire more business, get in front of enough leads, because it's a numbers game. If I do these things on social, if I get in front, go to this many conferences, if I do this many webinars, if I do this many cold calls, cold email, ads, whatever, we'll get X amount of appointments, and those amount of appointments will lead to X amount of deals. It's very mathematical. The thing that's not mathematical is I have 40 employees, or I have 30 employees, or got 20 employees. How do I go from 20 to 50? Because same thing, going to that house analogy, I built this house because I want it to be a $4 million house, but this $4 million house doesn't have the foundation to be a $10 million house. It's the same situation every single time. So going back to this business is, all right, let's look at our structure and our foundation from a management perspective. What's the ratio of a manager and how many account managers can they manage? What's the strategy when you have 20 employees, 40 employees, 60 employees, 100 employees? When we are sourcing talent, do we have alignment to like start to train them before they actually have a hire, or do we need to like go through a full sourcing process and when we hire them, they're not getting trained? When we onboard them, do we have a streamlined training process that has 30, 60, 90-day goals? Do we have visibility into if they're on track or not? Are we making them a full-time offer that's guaranteed for a full year, or are we giving them a 30-day or a 2-week or a 1-week test to verify this person that can actually do the job, right? So a lot of this is we have templatized processes. Every business should have them on how to onboard talent at scale, on how to manage talent at scale, on how to delineate and create ratios on how managers should manage and at what point we're hitting capacity, on how managers can actually get the most out of their people and retain their people. Because at 4 million to 10 million, if you churn your talent, you'll never hit 10 million because you're going to be sourcing, onboarding, training, and people never hit like an expertise. So at that business, it's about turning your people operation system into a machine. And then same thing at the 8-figure run rate, it's about culture. Culture is what your people say and doing or not around. It's a lot of organizational psychology. So it's a little bit of a different conversation. But most of those 8-figure businesses anyway don't have systems of what I said anyway. So we're usually started there, then we go to culture.
Nice. I will say, just from my own experience, going from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to I think we were doing like 75, 80 million. That's at a certain point. And one of the old jobs that I had, going from like being like the one-man army to, okay, now I'm like a manager of a small team to now like have like a, departments under me. There's a lot of like personal growth and transformation, limiting beliefs that I had to crush to be able to get there. I mean, I'm a big reader, so that's like kind of how I ran through their process. When you're talking to these founders that are trying to make this transition, I would imagine that you're not only going through like, okay, hey, let's map out every touch point that you have with the customer and then like figure out how to build SOPs, standard operating procedures to like facilitate that. But you're also doing some level of like mental coaching. Like you're trying to like get their mindset right to be able to grow. Is that the case? And if so, what's that actually look like?
I think a lot of it's less about mental coaching and more about mental reframing, right? So if you think about the Matrix and Neo was able to turn the spoon when he looked at it from a different perspective. A lot of our stress is induced by just the perspective at which we're looking at a situation. So I don't know if I'm calling it reframing, but all my clients, so one thing that's unique about us, all of my consultants at minimum have run an 8-figure business. So my least accomplished consultant, he was running a $20 million a year business before he came in with 8F. So when you think about if you're doing $33K a month or $500K a month or $1 million a month, you have someone that's ahead of you, that's literally been ahead of you. And a lot of that is people at that level, they bring a sense of poise and just, hey, have you considered this perspective? Or hey, let's reframe this. It's a lot of that reframing just gives a context to view the situation. And then we just build a blueprint to move forward. So it's not necessarily for you, right? I think when you're going into management training, part of management training is teaching people how to think, teaching people how to communicate, teaching people how to uplift their self so they can lead others, right? You have to lead yourself before you lead others. But when I think about what we do with our clients, it's just framing and then building the process. And I think because the talent is so good, usually when you have a mentor who has been there, done that, they can see something in a split second that would take you months to see. And usually it's just being able to communicate what that thing is that they see. And it's like, oh, I see that now from that perspective. I can't believe I've been bashing my head up against the wall for so long because they didn't see it. They didn't have that frame of reference.
One of the things, so I'm a big believer in like coaching programs and accelerators, hiring consultants, like hiring experts that have done this. I've gone through several, some I can name, I guess, like if it's worthwhile, maybe some other time. But what are some of the common objections or like the fears that people have whenever they come to you? They want this problem solved, right? Like they're like, yo, I definitely need to be on the other side of this. Like I want to break through the plateau, et cetera. But what's usually holding them back? And I know, like, I think the level one thing is like, oh, it's like they're going to be like, oh, my budget's not there. Like I don't have I'm not going to make the investment. Like, but I feel like it's probably like deeper than that.
Budgets actually, we have a lot of different ways to be flexible with our pricing for different offerings and different clients of different sizes. Budget's actually rarely the reason that we don't work with someone. It's rarely the reason because the value and the ROI and the guarantees we have are insane. The most common objection we get is time. I don't have the time to do this. I'm not sure if it's going to work for me. It's really the biggest one I receive. So I have a good story. I had a new client sign today. His name's John. I met John. My CRM says we met in November of 2022 for the first time. And John was doing $20K a month in November 2022 when he came to me. And the reasons he couldn't hire me back then, one of them was budget, is budget, time, and it's just too big of a mess. I think I could do this on my own. Flash forward to today. We're recording this on August 1st, 2023. So now we're 10 months later from when I met him. And he came to me last week and he said, I'm in the same exact situation, except of 20K. I'm doing 30K a month. I'm still stressed. I don't see the path forward. I'm like fed up and I'm ready to work with you now. So the number one reason that people give to me is time. And there's a great saying, right? What's the difference between a bootstrapped entrepreneur that becomes a billionaire and one that builds a six-figure business? It's not resources, because both of them were bootstrapped. Both of them had access to the same resources. It's resourcefulness. So the common objection is, I don't have time. I'm doing too much. And my answer is, that's the exact reason why you should be leveraging us. Because like many others, we're not going to talk for another 3, 6, 10, 12 months. And you're going to come right back to me, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. And everyone, due to sense of ego, expect something different to happen, and it never does. The only way to change is to actually change. So what we do is exactly what I shared with you. Let's study your time. Let's identify low-hanging fruit. Let's create 1 to 5 hours of space where you can now grow and work on your business. And from that space and growing and working on your business, that's going to give you disproportionate returns. And that's why our clients get crazy ROI, because we allow them to actually start growing the business rather than working in it. So that's the objection. And that's usually a story in a way that I help them reframe their problems.
If this is for the listeners, if you haven't picked up on this, a lot of the questions that I'm asking, the way that I'm framing this is very much tied to like my own past personal experience and like trying to navigate this. So, you appreciate everyone's patience as I like go through like business therapy here. But one of the things that, I think I always did a bad job of was, I think at a certain point, especially some of us who are like a bit more DIY, I think we read like, oh, look, we should have SOPs. Oh, we should do this exercise of like mapping out. We just never do it. And what you just said of like, okay, like you are busy, leverage this external resource. We're going to like help you through this. What does that like tactically look like? I mean, you're not like wave the magic wand and fix everything for one of your customers.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that there's quite
100%.
a bit of stuff that you are doing. And so what is that? What's that give and take there? The balance between what you guys do and what your customers have to do.
Yeah. So I have a few frames of reference that I view my business in, and that are kind of my philosophical approaches to playing the game. And the first thing is to be a partner and to build a white glove experience. One of my gripes with the industry for myself, I spent $20,000 on coaches, consultants, programs, and courses before I made $1. And my girlfriend at the time, who was my fiance at the time, who then turned into my wife, was looking at me like, you're fucking crazy. You're spending all of our money. We're never going to afford a house. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I could do this. Like, I fucking knew it. And I need to find the right person that can actually help me, because all these people, they're incrementally helping me, and maybe I get ROI, but like it's not actually doing the thing I needed to do. So that was my first gripe about the industry, and it's usually a common barrier. People get burned. So when they see someone who like sounds good and talks good and has all these testimonies, like there's no fucking way that could be true. Like the amount of comments I get on my YouTube channel is like, you're full of shit, or I get that all the time. And it's, because it hasn't been true for you means it can't be true at all, which is not the case. So as it relates to helping, when we come in, the first thing is we need to understand your business and the intimacy of your business. We have to interview you and your team, right? And if it's like in your example, Sanjay, we'd talk to Sanjay, we'd talk to his contractor. Then we would audit his business, and then we would build the plan. So just like in sports, The game is won not on the field, it's won in the preparation. So like Kobe Bryant's a great example of this. He would shoot 500 shots of one shot and then move on to the next one. He was more prepared than anyone else. And I find it to be true with business too. If you are more prepared, you have the right game plan, you will succeed as long as you execute it. So we do on a quarterly basis. And when we start with our clients, we build a 12-week roadmap. Here's what we need to do week 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12. We have our plan. As long as we do this, we will disproportionately be way further ahead in 12 weeks. Once you have a plan as an entrepreneur, you need two things if you're a high performer, or at least you're like competent and you could do stuff. Number one is clarity. Tell me what to do. If I know exactly what to do, how to do it, I have the example, I have a model, I have a reference point, and I have someone that can answer all my questions to make sure I don't have ambiguity and I don't have stress and I have clarity, I'm going to do it. But for everyone that still has all that stuff and doesn't, I need the accountability. I need someone to be in my ear and on call. So we provide the accountability and the clarity. We provide the roadmap. We provide an unlimited amount of questions. Hey, build it, send it to us. Try it. If you're stuck, text me, hit me up in Slack. We're here to support you. And then we check in. Hey, it's been 2 days since we spoke with you. Like that we're supposed to build this model or this system or this thing. How are you doing on it? Hey, that was on Thursday or Friday. Now it's Monday. I just want to check in with you. Any questions come up over the weekend? So we're holding our clients' hands in the journey, right? We're making sure they have clarity, and then we have calls with them weekly, and we're checking in with them to make sure the accountability, making sure we don't keep going forward without progress. And in the rare occasion that we have a week to week basis where there's no progress, we pause and we're like, yo, this might not be a fit. We might have to refund you. Or what are your barriers? Like, what is truly stopping you? And then we address those. So that's why we win. That's why I have a guarantee, satisfaction, money back. You define satisfaction. We've worked with over 600 clients. No one who's worked with us beyond a month has ever asked for their money back, because usually in that first 2 weeks or first month, we're finding people that aren't a fit. They don't actually want to grow. They don't actually want to do the work. And we're like, hey, this isn't a fit. Let's part ways. We'll refund you. No worries. But anyone who actually has committed, almost 700 clients, we've never issued a refund, because success really is that simple. Show me the blueprint. Show me the roadmap. As long as you do it, you'll achieve whatever it is that you want. And I really believe that. I really believe that's what success is.
So I love that. The blueprint pieces, I think, is a really common objection that regardless of what business you're in, you're like, hey, like, does this work for me? And if you can show, hey, it's like worked for all these other people that are just like you or very similar to you, like, here's how you do it step by step. What I really love about a lot of the things that you've said is, I think you're the type of business person, and I think it seems like you run your business in a way where you're very, very mindful of each little touch point. The first piece of this was like, obviously in your process, you say, hey, okay, let's go and map out everything you do for a client from, before you get them to onboarding them to manage them and then, offboarding them, whatever that looks like, all the different SOPs tied to it, who needs to do what, et cetera. That level of thoughtfulness, like being able to run through that exercise in and of itself, is actually a skill. I think it's discipline as well, which is a skill, I'm sure. But what I really loved, something you just said, was like, as your customers, as like 8-figure agency customers are going through your program, you're checking in with them. You're it's like, hey, do you have any questions over the weekend? Hey, like, do you have any questions over a specific module? Hey, you should be here by now. Like, what's that look like? So you're like eating your own dog food. You're like practicing what you preach, however you want to like frame it. Were you always like that? Did it take you a while? I mean, you ran, an 8-figure business unit, or probably bigger than that. You tons of people in your department at Amazon. Is that something that you inherited from Amazon's way of doing things, or did you have to like go through this trial by fire yourself?
So let's kind of go philosophically first. A lot of pretty much 90% of everything we do is from my approach from Amazon. But then there was a lot of studying of psychology in account management and consulting, right? So I went to an institution to learn how to be a consultant. And then I also went to an institution to learn how to be a coach, because I thought I wanted to be a coach back in the day. So it was a combo of, I learned the methodology and then I did it myself. I scaled my solo practice up to 30 clients. I was making $30K a month. Sound familiar? And then I was like, fuck, I thought I wanted to be this thing. And now, oh my God, I hate it. I can't take time, right? And then I just, I was like, let me just build a true business. Rather, my buddy said, you don't have a business, you're a prostitute. You're selling your time for money. That one hit me hard. So yeah, I think the thing is that I took from Amazon that actually allowed me to get there is I have this intentionality with how I want to do things, but the reality is until you go to market, until you go live, there's so many nuances that you have to have an ability to have continuous improvement. And this is one thing that for my business separates us from the rest, because at Amazon, we have processes for continuous improvement. I'll tell 2 quick stories on that. One that happened today, I got on a call with the client. He wanted to build out a management base inside of Airtable. We have a development department. And, he said to me, I was like, how's the experience so far? And he's like, it's good. Matt's doing the due diligence, but to be honest, he hasn't asked me any questions yet. I'm not sure, is he doing anything? Is he doing okay? And I went to Matt, who's my COO, by the way. I'm like, what? He said this, what's going on? And he replied, he's like, dude, I literally told them on the call that I'm going to bucket all of my questions and ask all of my questions at one time rather than distract them and delineate them several times throughout the week. I'm just going to do it all at one time. So here's the unique thing about this scenario. He told them the client didn't hear it and didn't remember it. So we did not have a process to remind our clients that, hey, we might bucket all of our questions and send it to you at one time. So one process that we have now put into our process, it's in our workflow as of today, is during due diligence, if you are the type of consultant that asks all of your questions at once, 2 days after when you start, 7 days after when you start, you remind them, hey, I'm still doing my due diligence on your systems. Just sending a reminder that I'm going to ask you all my questions at one time rather than several times. I'm doing the work and I appreciate you. So that's a great example of we need to have the flexibility and the versatility to hear the feedback and change a micro behavior, a micro interaction. And the second one is, last week we had my onboarding specialist and my billing associate take off, and we had someone fill her role. And he came up with, whenever we do that, we say, hey, just aggregate all the barriers that you face in this role. And we aggregate 7 specific barriers, and then we put it into in every business, you have priorities and problems. If you don't track them, your problems will eventually become your priorities. So we have a problems tracker, and we just prioritize which ones are the ones that are disproportionately impacting our business. And then we just solve a few every week. So I have been like this, but I have the frame of reference on the right system from Amazon and how to continuously improve, because the best businesses are not the ones that figure it out when they launch. It's the ones that figure it out on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis and build better structure and systems as a result of that.
It just sounds like, I think we've all read enough business books to know, hey, these are the things you do. You just do the things. You do all the things that make a real business. And lo and behold, it works. You're able to grow. You're able to understand what's actually happening. Take a pulse check anytime you want, which I love. Obviously, a big part of our audience is e-commerce focused. And I was curious to know if across all the e-commerce specific agencies that you've dealt with, if there were a common set of problems or pitfalls, that they encounter. That's kind of
shout out Meta.
Yeah, just apart from getting zucked. But yeah, if there's anything that you see as a common trend across all the e-com specific agencies, good and bad.
The only thing I could really say from a negative trend, the problems of all agencies are the same. The one thing that's unique about agencies that are e-com focused is everyone else is too, right? It's one of the biggest red oceans in all the industries. E-com and SaaS have probably the most agencies that are disproportionately focused on them. A year ago, I met a e-com agency owner who also sells his own products. He has a son who had a learning disability. So he ended up creating a product for his son that he started selling on Amazon and on Shopify. And he started a newsletter about it. He has a newsletter of 60,000 people that also have kids with learning disabilities. And he learned through his business how to build a product and really run ads and acquire customers and build a newsletter and all this stuff. He learned so much. And when I met him, he was focusing on products that were e-commerce. I'm like, dude, no, what are you doing? I'm like, you are the product. You should have a niche. You only work with products that help people with disabilities or people or something wrong with disabilities. Why? You have the story, you have the experience, and you have a newsletter of 60,000 customers you could cross promote your clients to. So I think the number one thing is you have to niche and then niche further. Like, go freaking deep. That guy could get 100 clients because look, there are thousands and thousands of products in the disability space. He can have 100 clients and he could have a multi-million-dollar business. But he was going too broad. So the first thing is go niche and then niche further. Like, you would rather be the e-commerce growth agency for dog products and just dog products and then get referred to cat products, rather than you have some in dog products, you have some in hardware. You need to find your space. And that's always the number one issue, because everything else is the same. Everyone else faces the same issues. We all have meta issues or these problems and people problems, and we talk about that, but it's usually niche and client acquisition. And if you niche down further and the furthest, everything in your business gets easier.
We've talked a lot about the back end processes, making sure that you've got the right processes, people, and just sort of like kind of pulse on how things are going within your business, to improve. Like, that's like a big unlock to scale. We talked at the very beginning. I think, I asked what it was like if you kind of weighted one or the other more. Importantly, you said it becomes easier if you have the back end to scale. Talk about the front end. So when someone comes to you, I'm sure a lot of people actually come and say, "Hey, I have like a conversion problem. I've got a leads problem." I know for me, before I knew, I think a lot of the stuff that I've learned, even like the last year, I definitely framed my agency issues more as that. So like, how do you address true conversion problems, and then also talk through people who are like, "Oh, no, you don't have a conversion problem. You have like a back. Your conversion is actually part of your back end instead of your front end."
So I think that's a great question. And it starts with data for me. So one of the things I look at, how many appointments do you set per month? So give me that, go through the last 6 months. How many appointments did you set? From your appointments, how many of those appointments turned into closed deals? So if you book 10 appointments, how many of those actually turn into clients? So that's number one. That's conversion. So one's funnel and marketing, one's conversion. From there, what's the average LTV of your clients, right? What's your capacity for how many clients you can have? And then, what's the average price point, right? So a lot of LTV is correlated to price point. I meet a lot of agency owners that are just underpriced. I worked with a guy, I helped a 7-figure agency based in the UK. In less than 30 minutes, I helped him add $25,000 in profit because he was underpriced, and he was overpaying for local talent rather than, going to Eastern Europe for a specific thing. And it was really easy and really quick, but he had hundreds of clients, and we increased our price by like $100 a month to account for inflation and software. And I helped him at, it was so easy. But so when I'm looking at these businesses, it starts with data. And then once I know the data tells us what the problem is. It says it's actually, you have a capacity issue. You don't have an appointments and a sales issue. You have a capacity issue. You have an LTV issue. You don't have an appointment and sales issue. If you moved your LTV from 2,000 to 10,000, you'd be chilling. You would move from 30K. You'd move from 30K to 120K a month just like that if you 5x your LTV. And then if it's truly not one of those things, then we look at, okay, it's a conversion issue. Here's my philosophy, my thesis. I think as a founder that when you're driving sales, if you're selling a service, at the bare minimum, you should, for every time you make a pitch, 30% close rate. If you're doing anything less than that, you're very bad at sales. Like, number one, you have the capacity to be at a 40%. If you're good, and if you're very charismatic and a genius in what you do, you should be at 50, 60. So when I look at that, I break down the sales process. The sales process when you're selling a service, for me, has 3 phases. It's rapport and trust. Does this person trust you? Like, you won't take them behind the barn and shoot them and fuck them over, like as Mr. Wonderful says on Shark Tank. They need to trust you as a human, number one. Because if they trust you as a human, they'll start to think about your service in a technical context. Number 2 is I don't pitch, I consult. I don't sell, I serve on call. So in real time, like if I met you when you're doing 32K per month, I'm like, hey man, what's the number one problem you're facing? Where do you want to be at in 12 months? And I'll ask a lot of questions about that problem. Be like, hey, do you mind if I show you how to solve your problem? Yeah. Then I'd pull up some diagrams and I'd pull up some stuff and in real time, I'm displaying, I know how to solve your problem. And then I'm like, hey, question, here's the roadmap on what you need to do. If you want, you could take this and implement it alone, but would you like to hear how we could do it together to help you go from 30K to 100K per month? The answer is always yes. And then it's closing. Once you present price, that's when you go from selling to closing. So then it's logistics and pricing, and then you're handling objections. And a lot of those objections are just fears and apprehensions that actually have nothing to do with your service, because you've now proven that you're trustworthy and that you could solve their problem. And now you need to address the mental side of they have fears and apprehensions that just have to do with them, and you have to reframe and help them work through those. That's if it's a conversion issue. And then you could always go to appointments. Dude, you're booking two appointments a month. Have you done cold email? No. All right, let's do cold email, right? Have you done this? Have you done that? Right? So it's just looking at the data and using the data to dictate where you need to put your time and attention towards.
One of the things that, well, first of all, thank you. I think I hope that all our listeners are able to like kind of extract this and apply this to their businesses ASAP. And we'll go to kind of deeper in that in a second. Before we go deeper in that though, I have to ask, I'm on your website, I'm looking through your testimonial section, and it scrolls. Like you go to if you're listening, go to Jordan's website, 8figureagency.co. Go to the testimonials tab and then scroll. And like you'll see, not only are these like, there are a lot, but they're like 20 to 40 minute long videos, sometimes, over an hour long, of like person giving the testimony and like talking about the transformation. How, like obviously like that's incredible validation. It's insane social proof that you've been able to pull that off. What's like the secret to being able to like, get testimonials like that on a recurring basis outside of the obvious answer of like, just do great work? Like, do you have a process around how you get testimonials? That's
number one.
I mean, that's probably like the biggest one,
that's
right?
number one. I do. So I have a few different types of testimonials. So I have two new clients. They're brothers. They run a business. Tyler and Brady. They're based in Australia. And I was just on call with them because they wanted to learn a little bit about Airtable and project management CRM. So after I presented the value, I just checked in. I'm like, hey guys, I'm so glad. They had initially signed up because they just wanted audit. And Tyler was like, I don't sign up for programs. They're all full of shit. I just want the audit. I just want the roadmap. We presented the roadmap, and he hit me up. He was like, yo, I could not sign up after that. So I was like, hey guys, I'm so excited that you leaned in. I was really surprised because you made it very clear you wouldn't sign up. I'm like, tell me about your experience so far. And they said, hey, we just had our first call with Joe. Joe, by the way, has run 2 8-figure businesses. I think he scaled the business to 70 million annually. And he's like, we've been so Brady's brother stepped in. He's like, we've been working for years to, scale and work really hard and not know the right thing to do. And in one call, Joe showed us exactly what we need to do. And for the first time, I felt like this could actually be easy. And in that moment, I am writing down what they're saying. I'm like, hey man, first and foremost, I'm so happy that you feel that way. Would you mind if I use this as a quote on social? Because I wrote it down and then I sent it to them for their approval, which they approved today. And now that's a social quote. That's one type of thing. Number two, it's just doing a check-in 30, 60, 90 days. Same exact thing. Get ready to write, because you could have social proof where it's just a quote. And then you could also have a testimonial. So I found testimonials are pretty hard to get. Like they're really hard. So I realized what I do instead, if you go to my podcast, like you'll see how Kier and Houlihan added, or how this 19-year-old added, he had 40K in recurring revenue in 4 months. So what I do is I'm like, hey, Kieran, I'd love to share your success story on my podcast. So I bring them on the podcast, and now I have a podcast video. And at the end of the podcast, I save 5 minutes at the end. I'm like, hey man, would you be open if we I'll go off camera. We'll just click record and just capture your thoughts, like 1 to 2 minutes. Where were you before 8F? What are results? And how would you recommend people to join if they should? And that's how I capture social proof quotes. And that's how I get podcasts. And that's how I get testimonials because of that process.
That's amazing. And it's got a machine running that's not only like helping you sell more stuff, but it's also it's a retention tactic. I'm sure it's like people can like go through, feel good about all the work that you've done for them.
They have to verbalize. That's such a great point, Sanjay. One of my favorite lines, I went to a mastermind in 2021. Shout out to my friends from Tombstone. And one of the lines we got out of that mastermind is the mind is sick, which is so true. A lot of times the LTV gets fucking blown out of proportion, ruined because the client's perception's wrong. Like, it's just wrong. It's not reality. And let's go back to my client that I spoke to today. Hey, I haven't heard from Matt. I don't feel like he's actually doing anything. Matt literally told him, I'm going to compound and compile my questions, so I send them to you at once. He heard it and literally has zero recollection of it. That could literally ruin our experience with him, right? So as a service provider, one thing you have to do is look out for the touch points along the journey that you need to remind them, hey, we're good. You're happy with us. You're getting ROI. Let's keep doing this. And a great way to do that is a QBR, quarterly business review. So at every 90 days, you want to present, hey, here's what we did over the last 90 days. Here's where we were 90 days ago. Here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Make it a graph. Make it like show growth. Here were the wins. Here were the lessons learned. Here were the wins that you told us. Here's how you told us you feel. I just want to check in. How are you feeling right now? Write it down. You need them to see until it becomes so habitual where they turn into a client. They're like, dude, I trust you. I never need to hop on a call ever again. But the mind is sick. Your client, if you do good work and you get ROI, you'll still lose clients because it's not your fault. And then you need to start thinking about, how do I retain my clients, do better customer success processes, which is just psychology, priming, planting the seed, right? Acknowledging and validating. There's so many different tools that we teach, my consultants teach our clients, that are just so nuanced. If you don't study NLP, if you haven't studied psychology, you have no clue they exist, and you're probably losing out on LTV because of it. So yeah, that's a great call out. The mind is sick. It ruins LTV. You gotta be looking at it.
Can you define NLP? Is that...
Sorry. Yes. Neuro-linguistic programming. If you know who Tony Robbins is like the person who popularized the coaching space. NLP, which I think was founded by Richard Bandler, is the study of success. So these scientists, these PhD scientists, would go literally sit down with, the best of the best in certain areas. They'd sit down with the best therapists and like, why is it that all therapists suck, but this one therapist has clients come in and within 90 days to 6 months, they're gone? Or how come all hypnotherapists suck, but this one hypnotherapist, people come in with a smoking addiction and within one session, they don't smoke ever again? So they go, and it's called modeling, and they understand it's exactly what I did with my business and with Amazon. They get the best practices from the elite, the top 1%, and they reverse engineer like the smallest nuances of what's happening, and they define it in a psychological term, and that's NLP. So you can actually go study NLP. Go to NLP.com. I have studied with Dr. Matt James. Dr. Matt James went to a Tony Robbins event at the age of 10. His dad, Dr. Tad James, is one of the fathers of NLP. Tony Robbins recommends Dr. Matt James as the premier trainer in the space. I've learned from him. He's elite. He is fucking sick. He can make you literally cluck like a chicken if you want to do. I'm not even kidding. He can put people into hypnosis and cluck like a chicken. It is so
That's
cool.
Amazing.
I think every person who wants to be successful should study NLP. When I was there, when I went through my first training program, they pulled up a slide of everyone who's done it. Bill Clinton, Hugh Jackman, Oprah Winfrey, Tiger Woods. The list was crazy. It's like all of these people have studied this thing I've never heard of. Like, oh my God, did I just find the secret to success? NLP. If you are an ambitious person, you should study it.
I think a lot of folks get into the sense of like, oh, like that stuff's got to be hokey. It's not. But at the root of it's communication. If you understand like how to communicate effectively, like, right, if you just frame it as, oh, it's effective communication, it's like, okay, it's a little bit more palatable. It's not like this like kind of whatever mysterious hokey whatever. But I'm fully bought into that kind of stuff. I'm actually,
it's science too.
Is science.
Like they do peer reviews. They partner with universities to do like legitimate science, right? So they reverse engineer, and then they use the science to show this is real.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's not any different than like just like marketing psychology, like how you structure pricing, offers, etc. Like if you're doing an e-commerce activity, which again, that's what our audience is a lot of. But I know we've got just a couple more minutes left. So rapid fire. If there's one thing that you could get agency owners who are listening to this to do today, the one thing that they should clear out 30 minutes and do? What's that one thing?
Go to 8figureagency.co/call and hit up your boy. I'm serious, but outside of reaching out to me.
Yeah, after they do that.
Yeah, after you do that. And I'm not even kidding. I know our stuff is so good and we have 100% success rate that I genuinely do believe, like, for agency owners, we are the best solution. If they know how to sell and they know how to get leads, I do believe we really are the best solution. But outside of that, you have to reverse engineer your success, right? So it's either building that roadmap that I said, so the first step all the way to the last step in your customer journey, or it's learning how to reverse engineer success as a generalization, right? So if I want to be at $10 million in 1 year from now and I'm doing 1 million right now, where do I got to be at in 1 month from today and 1 week from today? And what do I need to do today that compounds into that? I learned that through the one thing. It's called the 411 from there. We reframed it and we called it the GPS goal: 1 year goal, 1 month priority, 1 week sprint. And that skill alone is the reason that, I run a multi-7-figure business where we have a clear path to 8 figures. I got guys that are way older than me, and some of them are more than double my age, right? Or most of them could be my dads and my fathers, my parents. And that's why I have people like that coming to work for me, because I reverse engineer my success, like to become a person worthy of their employment. So if you do that one thing, that is the key to all success. Just the blueprint's literally there. That's what NLP is. The blueprint is there for you. Just go find it and then do it. And that's what we do.
If you could synthesize like the biggest unlock that you've ever had, if you like kind of distill all the learnings, growth you've had in your career to like one key idea, what was that thing that gave you like, holy cow, like, unlocking 100% of your brain potential or whatever? Like what's the big thing that really blew it all open for you?
Honestly, it's what I said. It's like it's reverse engineering. Like, it's the mind. So if you think about how far you could forecast probably effectively like 1 month into the future, but the mind is so bad at going 1 year. So if you start with the end in mind and back in, like, that has been the one thing that changed my life. And I learned that at Amazon because I was struggling at Amazon. I couldn't succeed. I almost got fired my first 6 months of the job. So then I had to figure out my own shit, and I stumbled upon that.
There you go. And then, you mentioned that you've got some like absolute killers on your team, people who have done, 7, 8, 9 figures in growth themselves, and they come to work for you and they're helping your clients grow. Do you feel that hiring the best talent is like the biggest hack for any business? Because that's a leading question.
It is. It really is. It's just what do you prioritize? Because it's not for everyone. Like, hiring the best talent in the marketplace comes with a premium, and like, you will run a lower margin business, and but you have to be conscious of that, right? So it's do you want to do everything and make 500,000, but like you never could take off on vacation? Or do you want to make millions of dollars, take you a little bit longer to profit, like 500,000 a year or more, but now you don't have to manage your talent, right? So A-level talent never needs to be managed. They just need alignment. B-level talent will always need guidance and will always need training to get to their next level of skills, but they'll always need vision and management. C-level talent will need to be coached and retrained consistently. I take A every day of the week, and like, every person I hire can become an equity partner in the business. That's how good they are. That changes I don't worry about fulfillment. I don't worry about retaining clients. I just focus on growth, and I focus on doing this stuff.
All right. And then just to close it off, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Probably, shit. If I give him a few, yeah. I'd say go into therapy now, because we all come out of childhood with trauma. I'd say you're going to start meditating in 3 years. Start now. And those would be the two, because I think a lot of my pitfalls were just my self-confidence. I didn't feel worthy of a lot of different stuff, but I took a lot of action. So those would probably be the two. Amazing.
All right, Jordan, we're going to do this again because I think there's like so much more that we can cover.
I got a lot to say, and man. We could keep going.
I think what we should do is we'll source some questions from the audience, and I think we can start going through some more tactical stuff on round 2. But I want to say, dude, thank you so much. Selfishly, this has been like kind of a huge mental unlock for myself. Having this conversation with you. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of the folks that have listened. Even if you're just running a brand, I think everything that Jordan said is fully applicable, even if you're running a brand. Like thinking through your customer journey, all the different touch points internally, how your team works with vendors, with suppliers, so on and so forth. Like this is true regardless of what type of business you're in. It's not just great advice for agencies, but obviously this is tuned specifically for agencies because you want a niche, and as Jordan said, niche further. Dude, again, I appreciate you so much for jumping on Design to Convert. I'm excited to have you again soon, and thank you so much, man. This is awesome. Yeah,
it was a pleasure. And guys, if you're listening to this, I normally don't do this, but I think this is a great chat. You could email me, which I don't give out often. My email is jordan@eightfigureagency.co. I'm trying to do the Gary Vee scale the unscalable right now. We'll see if that bites me in the ass eventually. And if you just want to directly book a call with us, go to eightfigureagency.co/call. And yeah, we are more than happy to chat with you. I will personally get on a call with you. I'm doing the scaling the unscalable right now. I'm adding value and building those roadmaps for everyone that comes in that's doing at least some form of like 15 to 20K minimum in annual revenue. But that's what gets me on the phone with 9-figure companies too, because I do the same thing with them. So,
incredible.
Sanjay, thanks for having me on. I will 100% come back whenever you want, whether it's in a week, a day, or a month. I'll be back. I'm down to chop it up.
Perfect. Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon.